welcome to the first episode of Byrdhouse Crime. Because I know you've all just been anxiously waiting on the edge of your seats for this first episode to drop, I'm here to relieve you of that pain. So a small intro about me. While I know most of you listening are people that I know, and a huge shout out and thank you to all of you because would not have been able to start this without the actual interest of you guys wanting to listen and for following me on the social media accounts that you have. Huge thank you for that. But my name is Ashley Bird, hence the name. Hilarious, I know. But this is something that I have kind of always wanted to do and never really took seriously, and recently kind of became passionate about a lot of the things that I want to talk about and didn't really know what to do with that, and this came to be my answer, I suppose. And what exactly is that? Great question. So glad I asked. So pretty much my whole life I've had a huge interest in pretty much anything true crime, unsolved cases, mysteries, myths, legends. Huge emphasis on anything cult related, conspiracy theories, especially related to like the government or nationwide or international, along with I am very, very passionate about history. So all of those things, I think, truthfully really tie together, and I think when you look at it that way, when it clicks that way, it's a lot bigger of a picture, and there's a lot of topics within all of these categories that I really want to get into, and what I would like to do with each episode on these different topics and subjects is this show is just mine. I don't have a co-host, but each episode I want to feature a different guest or co-host on with me. Right now, that's a lot of my friends and family who want to and have volunteered, and I think that's a lot of fun too, because I think it's going to help with very natural, very organic conversations. And that's what I want this to really be, is a conversation. I don't want it to read like I'm just telling you a story and you're giving your input. I want it to be a conversation, and I hope that the people who volunteer and want to come on the show care to have an input. And a lot of the people who I know, future upcoming co-hosts of mine, are a lot of friends that have a lot of interest, and I've kind of said, you know what, you pick your topic, I'll do my research, you do yours, and we'll come together. And that's my idea for how I really want this show to run. And I'm definitely open to reoccurring guests and people being on more than once, and maybe sometime in the future there'll be series on things, and I'll have people that I work with a little more and research together to have longer and more intact episodes. But right now, my thought process is definitely to do the research for each episode on my own, and so that I can walk through it, whether my co-host or guest has done any or none, and we can talk about it, and they'll be able to stop and ask questions and ask what's going on. But that's also a huge open offer if you are interested, or if you have ideas for things that you think would be good topics, and if you'd like to be on to talk about it. Because I think that's also really cool, is that not just interchanging the co-host each week, but each person who's coming on has picked their own mini subject that they're passionate about, their own mini conspiracy that they have, and that they say, oh my gosh, I heard this and someone's just gotta know it. And I love that. That's why I'm doing this. because of all of the little small dumb facts that I've learned and said, oh my God, I have to tell somebody. So I definitely do encourage my guest to come on with questions or their own research or knowledge on the topic that they're interested in, because I think that, like I said, it allows for a good conversation and it allows for us to really go into these topics better. But also, like I said, that's not necessary either, because if you're on and it's something you have no idea about, there's also something really fun about learning and being able to teach someone something new and kind of see them start to go down the rabbit hole of different things. But with that being said, allow me to state, for the record, I am not a teacher. I'm not anyone to trust on this, which is funny because I'm telling you, listen to all these things I know. But they are my beliefs, they're my thoughts, they're my conspiracy, they're research that I've done and sources that I have found credible enough to me. And I'll do my best with each episode to cite the resources I used or explain, and explain why I believe that and why it's credible to me, why I believe it to be credible. But a big point with that is, please always, when you are listening to anyone, it could be a show, it could be a podcast, it could be something literally I'm making right now in a closet in my house, or it could be something Hollywood's producing. Fact check everything. Do not take anything at face value, and do your own research. And the things that interest you, do your own research. Don't just, absolutely listen and watch the stuff, but just do your own fact checking to make sure that it's credible. And like I said, I'll do my best to explain my conclusions and share the sources that I found for all of my topics. With all that being said, while I don't have the time to do a full coverage topic like I know you're all just dying for me to do, I certainly don't want to leave you hanging. And like I said, I enjoy this, and it's stuff I don't want to talk about. So, some stuff I guess that I want to leave you with. And I didn't want to talk about something super heavy right now, or get into something super serious. I just wanted to think of something that was a good general topic that I felt like shared kind of where my brain is at with this, and information that I think is unknown yet also super publicly known, but with that underappreciated. And we'll get into it. I know I'm not making a lot of sense right now, but something I kind of want to talk about are the declassifieds. And I mean the CIA and FBI declassifieds. And I know they have had their TV shows and they've had moments. But I'm willing to bet, because myself, up until probably a year or so ago, was not reading the FBI and CIA declassifieds. And when I did, it wasn't with the intentions of going down the rabbit holes that I've gone down now. It's just on Google, and there's so many topics and things that we talk about and think we don't have questions, or think that we don't have the answers to the questions that we have, but we do. And that's where they are. But that's not in the media. That's not in the news. It's just being declassified. And a lot of it's still redacted, and that is something that I'll say is really interesting when you're going through these articles, is you'll go through ones that are declassified, so they're out for us to see, and you can't read shit. The whole thing is redacted. But you can go on these websites and find pretty much any topic ranging from murder to pop culture to war crimes, public figures. Like, I have a few examples I'm going to get into later, but they have on the CIA's, it's called UFOs Fact or Fiction. They have one called Declassified Documents Related to the 9/11 Attacks, which has a really interesting one, and I don't want to spend a lot of time getting into these articles. I just kind of want to talk about the fact that they exist. But he was at the time, the director of the CIA, the DCI. His name is George J. Tenet, and if you hear papers rustling, you do. I did my research, okay? I mean, I did. I wanted to be able to explain the things that I know and really get into them. But, okay. Anyways. Georgie, he was the DCI from 97 to 01 and had proposed for quite a while the threat of Al-Qaeda, and in 05 submitted some more information basically saying, I fucking told you so. And my point in saying all this is you can read it. And there's so much to learn and so much to gather from it, and there's so many pieces in all of these puzzles, and especially our government. And like I said, I'm not doing a full episode, so we'll get into it. But there's so many pieces. And not so much as a puzzle, but like more so like a game of chess. I think you have all of these different parts that are supposed to be communicating and moving in a strategy together, and they're not. And I think that's a big thing that we see in our government, and that we can see in our past. At least I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about 9/11. So, yeah. But another range. Let's jump over the tracks. Because like I said, I don't want this episode, it's not about anything. We're going to jump a little bit here. More onto what you can find on the CIA's declassified page is they have a bar, and it says UFOs, Fact or Fiction. And I kind of want to just start this by reading. I wrote down a few of the titles, and this one I did not really go into any of them, because I thought if you just go to this page, the UFOs Fact or Fiction, you can almost look at it and let it speak for itself. And I'm not saying don't do your research, because like I said before, do your motherfucking research. But it's just really interesting to look at the titles of it. So the headline of it is Documents in This Collection, and some examples of them are as followed. German scientist article on flying discs. Flying saucers in Spain and North America. USSR and satellite mention of flying saucers. Flying saucers in East Germany. And one of my favorites, flying saucers, problem. And while that's only 5 different articles, there's 13 pages on their UFOs Fact or Fiction bar. So, like I said, If you don't know much about UFOs, or if you're interested in them, and if you have time to read something that's not a Wikipedia page, because something I will say when you go into these articles, because part of the reason why we're not deep diving into any of these is because if we did, they would be an entire episode of themselves. So we're just kind of discussing the overall general consensus of the things that you can find on declassifieds. But as I was saying, when you go into these actual links, you may find, like I said before, absolutely nothing where the entire 15 to 20 something pages are redacted. You could go into something that's one page that's just a cover photo. You'll waste a lot of time going through these, but you'll find good ones too. And they're not hard to find. It's not like every single one is overly redacted or just the cover photo. My point is, it's just not as simple as Googling UFOs, are they real? Because you're not going to find the answer Googling it that way. And I think that's why I've gotten so into this, is because I want to know, you can't Google the are they true, yes or no. You have to find the accounts, you have to find the witnesses and the stories, and it's just really interesting that all of these documents and things are available to us and how little we choose to access them. And I think a lot of that is by intention of they don't want us to know about it. Like I said, it's not in the media. It's not in the news. When they declassify something, it's public knowledge, but it's not known about. So our next mini topic is going to be criminally insane versus sane, because I think that's a really fun topic that there's a lot of misconception on, because I myself had a lot of misconception on, which I think is already turning into a theme that I really enjoy talking about things that kind of didn't make sense to me before, that I debunked in my own brain. And I want to preface this by saying this is not my Jeffrey Dahmer episode, but he is going to be used as an example in this, because I feel like he's a widely known case that I can use with little explanation to what I'm using him for here. But basically what makes someone sane enough to go to prison or not. And the bottom line of that anytime I'm in this discussion, whether I agree with it or not, we're talking about the courtroom and the law. And essentially what that means is, do you know right from wrong? And like I said, we're going to use Jeffrey Dahmer here as a example. Jeffrey Dahmer was definitely mentally ill, and I'm not talking shit about him. We're doing a Dahmer episode, don't worry. I have a lot of defenses for the man, to be honest. I think he was done wrong a lot of times in his childhood, whatever. But bottom line, he knew what he was doing was wrong. Therefore, he can go to prison. It doesn't matter how unstable, how compelled, how out of control he was. It doesn't matter. He knew the difference from right and wrong. And that's the bottom line with that. And that's unfortunate. I don't know. I really don't know if it is. It's a hard one for me. I'll say that, because for me it's hard that, like I said, we're using Jeffrey Dahmer here as an example. I I believe he had a lot of wrong done to him growing up, but you're also responsible for your own actions on the other end, you know? Like, there's a lot of people that grew up rough and turned out great, but, I mean, we don't have the answer to everything, you know? Like, I feel bad saying that, because it's not my place to judge, because he grew up not great, you know? So, I don't know. But, bottom line, he knew difference from right or wrong. Now, with that, there's obviously examples of people who are unfit, and you either pretty much have to literally actually be insane or have the best fucking lawyer. Because the thing is, even if you have the best lawyer, they have to be able to back up what they're saying. So if you do something out of the blue one day and you have nothing to back up the fact that you're crazy, you're not going to get off with it. There has to be evidence. Like for me, for instance, if I go crazy, y'all don't worry about it. The evidence is there. I'm loco. We'll get into that. Don't worry about it. But I digress. An example of someone who would be mentally unfit for prison that could essentially, like, I guess what you're trying to say is they can get away with murder without, you don't get away is the thing though. And that's a big, like, I guess I want to say this really quick before we get too deep into this. When someone like this, that's this crazy, that they don't go to they don't get to go to prison, they don't have to go to prison, they don't get to go home. They're in a facility for until they're mentally stable enough to go to trial. They're not out. Okay, like, these people aren't getting it easy. Like, they either have to fake it for their entire life in this fucking mental facility to stay out of trial, like if they're faking it, or if they're not faking it, they're there until they're sane enough to go to trial. You're not out of anything. So, anyways, moving on. An example of this, I've said this like 4 times now, I promise I'm saying it this time, would be someone who's truly living in like a delusion or cannot grasp reality. And now a really good example of this, and there's been a lot of depictions of him in modern television and movies and stuff, but we'll get to that in a minute. But his name is Billy Milligan, and he supposedly had, I think it was about 24 personalities. But like I said, you've probably seen depictions of him. But his story was he was known as the campus rapist, and he committed multiple rapes, and we're sparking through this. I think it'd be really fun to touch on him later sometime, but this is just a spark note version, like I said, to explain the difference between someone who is considered fit to stand trial for jail and someone or prison and who's not. And so we're gonna get to that. So he committed multiple rapes and was caught, and he couldn't remember them ever, and officers noticed different portrayals and major personality shifts within him as far as life experiences and the way he spoke. And eventually, you know, they cracked it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know exactly how they got to it. But he, in this trial, was proven to have this disorder, which made him unable to stand trial, essentially. And so my point in that, like I was saying, is while he's not innocent, he was not set free, but his story was believed. And so that's kind of the difference, I guess, in the two different in the most simple way, two different kinds of crazies. Because yes, while both, like, I feel significantly sorry for Jeffrey Dahmer and the struggles he had, because I believe his compulsions were things that he could not control. And we see a lot of serial killers like that who are very happy when they get caught because they didn't have another way out. Um, but then you have other people who genuinely were not aware of their crimes, or maybe they were, maybe they knew about them, but they didn't quite. There was a false sense of reality somewhere, a veil that kept them from understanding that it was real, is, I think, how it comes across to me. But that was just a little something on the crazies. And like I said, a little expectation of stuff that's to come, and I really look forward to having people on with me, because I have really enjoyed starting this podcast and recording this, but I cannot wait to have someone on here to talk with, because this is insufferable talking to myself. I believe that's all for my first episode of Byrdhouse Crime. I hope you're looking forward to upcoming episodes, and let me know if you'd like to be on one. Thank you to everyone who helped me and encouraged me in starting this podcast. Without you, like I said at the beginning, I certainly would not be here starting it. And I thank you all for following me on the social media accounts that you have. And I will share them in the comments of this as well. So, give your girl a like and subscribe. Or whatever the cool kids say, I don't know. But especially thank you all for listening. And until next time.